The honorary degree will now be conferred. Mr. President, will you present the honorary degree candidate, Mr. Coupland?
Mr. Chancellor, the finest artists combine acute powers of observation and insight. They are able to distill the essence of experience, and they invite us to look at life anew. Douglas Coupland is such a talent, and we are the grateful beneficiaries of his incisive intellect, his ironic wit, and his boundless imagination. He studied sculpture at the Emily Carr Institute of Art and Design and furthered his training in Japan and Italy. Subsequently, he turned his artistic eye on the world around him and began to write articles on popular culture. In 1991, he burst into prominence with his now legendary novel, Generation X: Tales for an Accelerated Culture, a book that captured the spirit of the times and gave voice to an entire generation of young people. Since then, he has been both prolific and popular. His fiction, innovative in form and content, challenges readers with its ironic exploration of the most vexing issues of our time. For example, the satirical vision of a society obsessed with the consumer culture in Shampoo Planet, the examination of human loneliness in Eleanor Rigby, the dissection of religious beliefs in Hey Nostradamus, and the depiction of a society drowning in information in J-Pod. In these works, as in all his writing, he has proved a wise and witty critic of contemporary society. An astute essayist, he has also contributed articles on popular culture to several prestigious publications, including the New Republic and Art Forum. In 2004, he wrote and performed his theatrical work, September 10, 2001, at the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford-upon-Avon. He has written scripts for film, and only the day before yesterday won the Leo for the best screenwriting of the year. His Souvenir of Canada books gained instant popularity for their witty portrayal of what it means to be Canadian. And in 2005, he published Terry, a sensitive tribute to Terry Fox, SFU's most illustrious alumnus. The quality and scope of his writing would satisfy even the most demanding of authors. But Douglas Coupland is also a productive visual artist of great talent and ingenuity. Over the years, he has worked on numerous projects, from furniture design to thought-provoking sculptural installations and multimedia work, such as Canada House, Spike, and Super City. Douglas Coupland is a unique national treasure, a truly prodigious talent. His work is translated into 22 languages, and it is exhibited and sold in 35 countries. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of this university, I ask that you now confer upon Mr. Douglas Coupland the degree Doctor of Letters honoris causa.
Douglas Coupland, by virtue of the authority vested in me and in the Senate of this university, I hereby admit you to the degree of Doctor of Letters honoris causa. Mr. Coupland will be hooded by Dr. John Waterhouse, Vice President, Academics.
It is now my pleasure to call on Dr. Douglas Coupland for his convocation address. Dr. Coupland.
Oh, what a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here today at SFU, which is a university created within my own city, within my own lifetime, and within my own memory. It's a university from which beloved family members have graduated, and a university that has grown to astonishing heights within the academic world and the equivalent in what is academic time space of a sneeze. Now, part of growing up here in Vancouver on the edge of the new world, on the edge of history that's both ancient and immediate, is the sense that life and greatness and mythology are things that happen to other people in other places, to Kennedys or to Rothschilds, or the very rich or to the aristocratic. But growing up here is to feel the sensation that history happens anywhere but here and now. And to this line of thinking, I have two words for you, and I think you already know what those two words are. Terry Fox, who is a man who would have graduated from SFU in 1983 had he lived, almost a quarter century ago. Now, I won't go into Terry's story here. I think most of you know it very well. But to me, he really is our greatest Canadian. And the fact of the matter is that before he began his 1980 Marathon of Hope, Terry spent over a year running up and down the mountain you must all know very, very well by now. And Terry's sweat and his energy have literally become fused into the mountain. He is a part of this mountain, and now here on the day of your graduation, you are part of the mountain as well. You and he are all a part of history. I remember when Terry's Marathon of Hope began to make the papers in the summer of 1980. I was stuck overseas in this horrible job I won't go into. But across the summer, friends back in Canada mailed me the front page of the Vancouver Sun, and I followed Terry's progress. And I remember sensing somewhere in the final weeks of the run in August of 1980 that Terry somehow had not only become a part of history, but he'd also become a part of mythology. And mythology is something different than history. Technically, history can happen to anyone, anywhere, and what of it. It's simply the daily news that lasts beyond a few days. But mythology, well, it's this snotty version of myself that I was in 1980. I just assumed that mythology happened all the time and big deal. Well, it is a big deal. Mythology is rare. It doesn't happen all the time, and entire generations come and go without creating a true mythological figure. And yet here we have Terry Fox, a kid from the suburb of Port Coquitlam, a suburb as boring and dull and remote and blank as any other suburb of Vancouver in that era, or in Canada at that era. And yet Terry, with his drive and spirit and force of will, he cracked open the shell of sleep that surrounds our day-to-day world, and he made our universe a different place, a place of amazement. Now, I come from the art world. Before I became a writer, I trained as a sculptor. And in the art world, there exists no snobbiness about where ideas and images come from. High culture and low culture, those were issues that were put to bed by Andy Warhol back in 1963. The way we experience our world on a day-to-day level is the only proof, I believe, that we have that we are alive, and the only evidence we have to make sense of our brief time here on Earth. And so to take a fragment from my beloved pop culture, I offer you a quote from an old 1980s band that I like, the Pet Shop Boys. Within a song talking about love, they wrote a line, "Just when you least expect it, just what you least expect." And to me, that defines not just the possibility of love, but the possibility of anything happening to any of us within a moment. Death is one breath away, but then so is courage and inspiration and the mysterious. 2 years ago, I was in a flea market in Los Angeles, and I bought a suitcase that belonged to a former Mason who died at the age of about 67. I pieced it together. And inside the suitcase were all these pretty scary Masonic pamphlets and brochures. And I read some of them, and there was this one pamphlet. It was prefaced by two sentences. that made great sense to me. When one Mason is out in the world and meets someone who he suspects might also be a Mason, he asks him the question, "Brother, are you headed home?" And the correct answer to this question, if you are a Mason, is, "Well, brother, aren't we always headed home?" Well, imagine asking this question of the young Terry Fox, barely 20, then running across the Canadian Shield, sunburnt on the left side of his face from only ever running west. Running home, are we not always running home, all of us here? Or maybe are we also running towards something else too, something so big and huge and formless that to overthink it is to feel horror and smallness and confusion, and this is the future. I remember being younger and being afraid of the future. I remember the 70s, which none of you here could possibly remember, the years 1970 to 1980, when, oh gosh, the world was filled with nothing but nuclear war and ducks and geese and cormorants, drenched in crude oil, washing up on the beaches of North Vancouver. That truly was the dark ages, and it scarred me. And I think it scarred a lot of people my age. And if only I could go back to that younger person, that younger version of myself, and give advice, something that would make sense the next 3 decades to make them feel less full of fear, what would I say? I would say to that younger Doug, don't worry, Doug. Nature always makes sure that the current generation has the skills and mindset it needs to get us through the future, out of the dark ages and into the bright ages. But of course, I was young, and when you're young, you're covered by this protective, naive coating called youth. And I doubt I would have listened to some crusty old freak swooping in and telling me how to run my life. So instead, I'm going to offer you advice served up by someone who's always going to remain young. To all of you, the SFU class of 2007, from one of your own alumni. The message given to us all by the simple man in the myth who's Terry. I offer you the knowledge that you all can become a myth in your own time. I offer you the knowledge that you can achieve greatness. And I offer you the knowledge that within the blink of an eye, life will deliver to you just what you least expected, just when you least expect. Terry's life was cut short at 21, but it makes all of us demand of ourselves, what would you do with the rest of your life if you had the rest of your life? And the thing is, you do have the rest of your life, and life is good. From where I stand now, and from what few things I've been able to learn fully about life, let me tell you 2 things. Try not to do it at first for the money, because once people do it for the money, they almost never go back to doing it for the love or for the art. And let me tell you now that no matter what anyone tells you or tries to force you to do, figure out what it is you actually enjoy doing, no matter how inconsequential you think it is, because that is the one thing that's going to keep you happy throughout your life. It's an honor to be here. It's a place I never would have imagined being. I write experimental fiction for a living. It happened to work out, but out there's some other universe where it didn't, and I try not to think of that place. The folks here at SFU have been unswerving in their kindness in bringing me here today. I'm deeply thankful and honored. Most of you here, you're in your 20s right now. God help you, it's the worst 10 years of your life. On the other hand, the 30s are pretty good, so there's something to look forward to. I have to cut this short. Most things in life are cut short. Make yourself proud, make your families proud, make Terry proud. Make the universe feel like a better place, like the bright ages. The world is alive. The world is a beautiful place. The world is glad that you're here. SFU class of 2007, I wish you the best of everything. Make it happen, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Coupland.